In this video, we're going to talk about using brushes to further modify layer masks. So we're not actually going to be painting with these brushes, just using them to create some interesting layering effects and modify masks just like we did with gradients. So I have the brush tool selected. I can hit B on my keyboard to select that. At the top, this is where you actually choose which brush you're using. This first option here where it says 20, the 20 is the size, and this is a little preview of the brush. Click this drop down arrow and I can see various settings such as the size of my brush, the hardness or softness. So if it's soft, for instance, I'll show you this on a new layer. It looks like that. If the brush is hard, it looks like that. There's other preset brushes in here that you can play around with. For instance, under the dry media brushes, there's charcoal. I'm going to make this larger by hitting the bracket keys. So next to the P on the keyboard, there's the closed bracket and open bracket. Hitting the one on the right will make it larger. Hitting the one on the left will make it smaller. I regularly use these to up and down the size of my brushes, just so you know. And again, those are the bracket keys next to P on your keyboard. So I hit the drop down arrow and there's pastels. There's all different types of brushes. If you're not using the newest version of Photoshop, this might look totally different. This one gives you this great screen effect. I'll zoom in on that. We can also create our own custom brushes. I'm going to go back to the default soft round brush by clicking this little folder right here. This folder option will let you change things such as the hardness of the brush, the spacing, and there's tons of settings. I'd really recommend you spend about 30 minutes looking through all of these. So for instance, shape dynamics. The term jitter refers to a randomness. So if I change the size jitter, it means every time I brush with it, it's going to change size. I can change the scattering jitter. I can add how it transfers. I can add noise, wet edges, how it builds up, how it smooths, all these different settings. So this one's going to create these nice sort of soft dots. All right, I'm going to delete this layer. I have our new brush selected, and I'm going to select our, let's do our Spaceman 1. This is Spaceman 1. I have him selected. I have the layer mask selected, and I'm just going to paint in black on the layer mask. So you can see what's happening. I'm kind of dissolving the figure. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click on the layer mask to view it. So I'm using that custom brush that I made to paint in these kind of dots. Let's switch this to a different type of brush. It's a very interesting effect. Let's try, for instance, a screen tone brush. So all I'm doing is just painting on the layer mask itself. So this is a slightly more unique way of blending layers together rather than just using opacity or something like that. Let's switch to our hue and saturation layer down here. I'm going to hold down Shift and press Delete or Backspace to change to a fill mode. I'm going to fill it in white so that it's all white. And let's pick another new brush. Let's make another one. I'll go to the soft round, click this little folder to open up our brush. This time I'm going to pick a jitter the size a lot. I've changed the angle. Opacity jitter in here under transfer. So that means it's adding some random opacity. You can see the effect that this will have. I'm going to make my brush way bigger. And again, I'm just hitting one of the bracket keys, the right bracket. So notice, I'm holding down Alt or Option and clicking this. Notice that the layer mask, it creates this really nice organic kind of film. This is a really great way to get interesting results with your layer masks. It's a little more complex than it originally was. Let's play around with the smart filter layer. So we have this smart filter that's applying this kind of cartoon shaded filter to our spaceman. Select the smart filter. I'm going to make my brush quite a bit smaller. If I hold down Option, I can click and see what that looks like. So see, I'm just sort of subtly shifting it around. So now parts of the reel are coming through. Let's select our spaceman himself. Make him kind of fade away as well. Notice I'm not using the brush in a very direct way, right? I'm definitely modifying the brush, finding an interesting way to use it. The basic default brush is very uninteresting and very, very difficult to use. It's hard to paint with a mouse. It's hard to get good results. Keep that in mind. Definitely explore this custom brush settings here. And in the future, we'll talk more about painting with the brushes. But for now, use the brushes to create some interesting effects between layers and how they interact with each other.